In the dusk of August 1919, the ancient manor on Shadow Hill in Massachusetts was filled with faint earthy fragrance. A gaunt old man with neatly trimmed silvery white beard lay quietly in a rattan chair by the window, his breath growing extremely faint. On his desk lay neatly stacked thick account books, yet what was recorded on them was no newly added assets, but donation receipts all sealed with red stamps. Only after he drew his last breath did his lawyer discover in shock that this tycoon, once on par with Rockefeller and monopolizing America's entire steel industry, had merely a few tens of thousands of US dollars left in his account. Tonight, let us follow the flickering fire and this casual tale to walk through his whole life. His name was Andrew Carnegie, a man who devoted the first half of his life to ruthless capital accumulation and the latter half to giving away his fortune in pursuit of redemption, trapped in an endless fate-driven struggle. To the public, he was a profound paradox. He crushed competitors with cold capitalist logic and exploited workers by cruel means, yet late at night he penned a stirring oath on paper: "It is a disgrace to die wealthy." Over his lifetime, he donated more than $350 million US dollars, equivalent to hundreds of billions in today's currency, funding the construction of over 2,500 public libraries that stayed lit deep into the night across America and around the globe. Why would a predatory businessman who stopped at nothing during primitive capital accumulation choose such an extreme, almost penitential path of charitable redemption in his later years? The night stretches long tonight. Leave behind all earthly distractions and touch this lonely soul struggling 100 years ago amid slow, low narration. Let us rewind time back to the blood-stained summer of 1892. Before the gates of the Homestead Steel Works in Pennsylvania, the Monongahela River was covered in thick black kerosene. Thousands of gaunt, ragged steel workers clutched shovels and stones, encircling the entire factory. They had labored for 12 straight hours beside scorching furnaces, only to receive an unforgiving notice of wage cuts issued by Carnegie Steel Company. On the verge of this explosive class conflict, Andrew Carnegie, supreme ruler of this industrial empire, cut off all telegraph connections across the country without warning. He retreated alone to his ancestral home in Scotland, hiding deep inside a telephone-free castle overlooking a frigid loch. He left all violent suppression and political maneuvering to his core agent, Henry Frick, a stern, hawk-eyed manager devoid of compassion. Frick quickly recruited hundreds of infamous Pinkerton detectives armed with Winchester rifles, who sailed ashore on barges before dawn amid thick fog to launch a sudden raid. Gunshots echoed sharply along the Monongahela River, blood spilled at the factory gate, leaving several workers and detectives dead amid chaos. Cries and curses tore apart Pennsylvania's night sky. A few days later, Carnegie restored his telegraph access in the Scottish castle. When newspapers listing death tolls and branding Carnegie a murderer landed before him, his pale face turned ashen as marble under dim lamplight. He slumped into a mahogany chair without his usual cigar, fingers folded nervously over his knees. Puritan morality long suppressed by capitalist reasoning surged forth as overwhelming agony gripping his heart tight. His private diary revealed his agonizing inner conflict. "I thought I followed the law of survival of the fittest and built the nation's backbone, yet why does this backbone drip with my countrymen's blood?" This bloody strike became an irreparable crack in his fate's balance. Though he defeated labor unions and doubled corporate profits with brutal crackdowns, he could no longer sleep soundly through dark nights. Wall Street cheered his victory and rivals trembled at his cruelty, yet inside his New York palace-like mansion, he turned into a lone wolf tormented relentlessly by lingering guilt. Carnegie's obsessive hunger for fortune and success, alongside his ever-present Puritan moral anxiety, stemmed from his bitter early memories as an impoverished immigrant. We travel back decades to Dunfermline, a damp, frigid Scottish textile and whaling town shrouded in industrial smog in those days. Andrew was born into a destitute family of traditional hand weavers. His father was an honest, stern craftsman clinging to old trades. Yet steam engines and automated looms swept across the industry in the 1840s, wiping out traditional artisans' livelihoods mercilessly. Carnegie watched his father's calloused hands, once crafting fine cloth, hang limp over empty tables without work. His family survived only on his mother's late-night shoe mending to buy cheap oatmeal. The memory of sitting in an unheated freezing cottage, watching his parents weep helplessly from hunger, etched an indelible survival terror into young Andrew's mind. Late one moonless night in 1848, 13-year-old Carnegie and his desperate parents sold every household belonging to squeeze into the fetid lower deck of an emigrant ship reeking of stagnant water and cholera, crossing the Atlantic to land in the impoverished slums of Pittsburgh, America. The New World offered no mercy. To survive, the scrawny underfed teen entered a dim cotton mill working as a boiler room helper earning mere dozens of cents per hour. He toiled 14 hours daily amid choking oil fumes and sweltering steam in the basement. Each time he lifted his head from coal piles to glimpse faint daylight through a tiny wire-covered window, his innate dread of poverty and burning ambition to control his own fate intertwined to guide all his future decisions. He realized decency and honesty like his father's only led to destitution and elimination in this capital-driven new world. Only by adapting to ruthless industrial rules and turning himself into a cold, precise calculating machine could he climb to power's summit. He stayed up late deciphering telegraph codes by flickering kerosene lamplight, his outstanding memory winning him promotion at a telegraph office and favor from railroad tycoon Tom Scott. Scott's rigid demeanor and cunning wealth-building tactics became Carnegie's dark business enlightenment. He learned to trade stocks using insider information and acquire bankrupt competitors' assets at rock-bottom prices amid crises. Years of harsh upward mobility severed his attachment to ordinary warmth, chaining his entire life to a cold rational business path with no turning back. Haunted by lifelong poverty fear and admiration for rigid order, Carnegie made his boldest and riskiest business gamble in the 1870s. During America's railroad expansion and pre-skyscraper construction boom, he shocked mainstream financiers by dumping all profitable railroad and telegraph stocks to pour every penny into steel, a raw material with barely any mature market back then. Steel production remained costly, relying on outdated British Bessemer smelting technology, yielding inconsistent quality prone to catastrophic rail fractures and train derailments. Against widespread pessimism, Carnegie displayed predatory business instinct. Clad in soot-stained black wool overcoat, he stationed himself on site at Pittsburgh's blazing Edgar Thomson Steel Works. He transformed intelligence tactics akin to Rothschild's into fanatical pursuit of technological upgrades and cost control, hiring top European chemists and engineers to turn intuitive steelmaking into quantifiable mathematical formulas. Factory chimneys billowed black smoke around the clock, and thunderous steam hammer beats became his soothing midnight lullaby. When the 1873 nationwide financial panic drove countless bankers and railroad magnates to bankruptcy and suicide, Carnegie sat calmly in an unheated